All right, the meeting will come to order, and the first thing we're going to do is call the roll for the record. And we'll do it like we did last time. I'll call your first name, and you go ahead and give your full name or your last name. Go ahead, Flo.
Burnell.
Yolanda.
Garza Lopez.
James. James is not here. I assume he's at work. I know he has to work a lot. Sylvester. Probably the same things. Oh, Sylvester got here. Sylvester Vasquez. Mike Frazier. Ida.
Sadolkin.
Keith.
Byron.
Okay, the roll has been called. Next thing we do is turn it over to the superintendent.
Yes, good morning, board members, and welcome to this June 2nd board work session. And to start it off, I'd like to introduce Janice Hernandez, who's going to lead us in the invocation, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together this day. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag.
I pledge
Allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
one
indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
All right, the next thing on the agenda is comments related.
Yeah, so we have some agenda items, some posted board agenda items. Items number 4, consider approval, which we normally try not to have, but in some cases there's time-sensitive issues that we want to contend with. Item number 5 is consider resolution. And then we also have on our agenda is a normal posting of a closed session permitted under law under item number 7. And I believe that we do have some folks who want to speak to item number 7 before we hear that one or remove that one because we don't have a closed session plan today. But because I reached out to Mr. Frazier that we thought we would allow Mr. Young, I believe, the PTSA president for Castem High School. I think virtually.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Yeah, actually, I'm currently the secretary of the PTSA, and then I'll be taking on the presidency here shortly in July. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I'm trying to make sure in this climate with all the people who have been doing the wrong way of pursuing their views to pursue the right way. And we, Dr. Versus was gracious enough to present us an audience, and he spoke to many of our parents and students that were concerned with the reassignment of Dr. Gardner. And I had a student here today that I felt had a great voice, and I wanted to give her that opportunity to speak kind of just a quick part of what her feelings are. I think everybody has an opinion, and I know you've all worked on this and you had your reasoning, but I just felt like I wanted to give her that opportunity to speak. If that was all right, if she could just present her response.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Adriana, if you want to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Okay. I'm a nervous speaker, but I will do my best.
That's okay. Just do your best, Adriana.
Okay. So, given the previous things that we've seen lately with an issue regarding our school, Castem, we've heard a lot of different things regarding new directions and new points of views that the school will be taking. So Us as students and parents have expectations that for the most part have been met thanks to certainty and the drive that Dr. Gardner had in her vision. We have yet to see the fruit of this being brought to life. And for an example, metaphorical example, if cats were a tree, we would have barely sprouted and cemented our roots. By inflicting judgment onto something based on something we have yet to obtain, by which I mean we have yet to see what CASTEM could potentially become. We have 2 years left to be able to show how we can grow and what impact this will have, not only in our lives, but also in general. The goal of the school has been yet to be reached. Regarding student demographics, that is personal information regarding that is relevant to the fact that as students, we are taking more positions of leadership roles. They're using the tools they've taught us. They're using the tools they've been taught, that we've been taught, to handle situations along with future problems we run into. If you would like to know more about our growth and the impact that we've had, not only with our community, but also the change we've made within ourselves throughout these 2 years, you can reference back to our sponsors such as HEB, Toyota, Caterpillar, CPS, Palo Alto, and Texas A&M. Now, with the waiving uncertainty that we have been presented with both parents, students, and staff, becomes this whole unwavering certainty becomes a lack of trust. We have 2 years of trust built around the school involving the direction we were told we were going. We as a public should know what the new vision would be. What should the curriculum contain? What direction will be taken for the school? We are a public school. The district is here for us, is it not? And if so, we should have a right to know, agree, and disagree with the decisions being taken place. Thank you.
Yes,
So I just want to say thank you, Adriana. And I think you did a great job of expressing your viewpoint, and I really appreciate and applaud your courage to do that. I know it's not always an easy thing, and understand that I hear your concern, and I do agree that you have a right to have your own point of view, and you have a right to voice that. And so thank you for taking that opportunity this morning. So what, Mr. Young, are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we appreciate you taking the time, in your leadership capacity. I know I had an opportunity to join a Zoom meeting. There are 90 attendants, or up to 92, I believe, the other night. And I think we opened up the forum to let concerned parents express their views, to let students express their views. I tried to answer the questions to the best of my ability, to the limits of not violating personnel rights of privacy or any laws, and just express the decision I made, and that I heard the concerns. And I know that this was a continuation of that, the students using Mr. Young as a really great, he did a great job of really kind of managing that conversation. And so we wanted to make sure that the Board of Trustees heard from a representative member, and Adriana Perez, this morning. And would that complete this part of it, Mr. Young?
Yes, sir. I think there's we're trying to make sure that our people know, or any concerns, to be able to go to the board. I think sometimes we're apprehensive, as a staff member myself, I feel like you may feel like they're going to be retaliated upon or something like that, or students feel like their voice won't be heard. But I just want to know that, the board is hearing it. Y'all gave us the opportunity today, present your concerns. And obviously, sir, we know that we can trust to present it to you as you gave us that opportunity already. I just want to make sure we use every resource that we have to be able to address our concerns. And I appreciate y'all giving us the time today.
Absolutely. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. So with that, Mr. President, we normally on our work session postings We have normally left the item 7 as a closed session in the event that something came up, gave us the opportunity to go into a closed session. Probably, we don't have any intention or did have an intention of going to a closed session. So when we contacted legal and Mr. Young reached out, we were provided 2 options. Number one, we could remove that at the beginning of the meeting and not provide the voice of the student or PTSA. Or number 2, let them speak and then remove the item. And so in my conversation with Mr. Frazier, we decided it was better for Mr. Young and Adriana to be heard. And now I'd like to ask if someone would remove item number 7 officially from the agenda so that we can go back and start our meeting.
I move that we remove item 7 from the agenda.
I second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And where do you want to go back now to?
I think we can go back to the beginning now. We have 2 items that we would like board action on, items number 4 and number 5 at this point, sir.
All right, go ahead. Take 4.
Number 4 is our District of Innovation plan. So we have an opportunity to provide to our employees an alternative to health insurance outside of TRS. Under the state law, we cannot rid ourselves of TRS, but under our DOI, District of Innovation, we getting approval from TEA, if it's in our District of Innovation, we can also bring in another plan that we anticipate would come at a 15% cost savings, over $2,000 annually for some of our teachers if they want to do this. And so I'd like to turn over Will Baker, who he and Dr. Fay and Mary Levery have really kind of been working through this, and he'll present his information from working with the DOI to make this as part of our DOI plan.
Thank you, Dr. Verstev, and thank you, board members. What we have is the procedure we presented an item of information to you saying that we were looking into this. And then on April 23rd, we took our proposed amendment to the district improvement team. We reviewed it there in that meeting, and they unanimously approved it and asked that it be considered by the board. And so the next step was to post the amendment on our website for 30 days. And so it has reached that point. It's been on our website now for 30 days. And so now we're bringing it to the board. Basically what this amendment, as Dr. Verstev said, allows us to do is to go out and look for options for our employees in the health insurance field. And we would like to do that because we feel like we might be able to provide a better option, especially for our employees with families. So if you would, we provided, hopefully you've been provided the amendment in your packets. I could read it to you, but it would be kind of a long and tenuous. But basically what we're asking for is for the freedom from Texas Education Code 22.004 that makes us take the group coverage from TRS. And this would basically allow us to be free of those provisions and be able to go out and again, look for a better option for our employees. So we're asking for board action to adopt this amendment. The next step would Dr. Verstev would inform the commissioner that we've adopted this amendment should you approve that today.
I move.
Second.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
When we say we're going to look for another option, because that's what we'll be supplying or giving as an option.
Right.
TRS will still have to be on the table.
It will still have to be on the
Okay.
table.
Are we going to go out for RFQs?
We-
RFPs?
We don't think we have the time to do the RFP. We do have an option through a Region 12 cooperative. They've already gone through that process. And so we would be able to look at their option rather quickly. Is that your understanding?
We've kind of in conversations,
Mhm.
what would be the actual cost savings? You know, it's not earth shattering, but significant cost savings. It would require us to do some in-house clinics and different types of networks. Basically, becoming our own self-insured entity. But we think there's enough cost savings to our families, to our employees, and to their family, that it's worthy of us taking the next step. But there is a time-sensitive issue going on that if we think we go out and RFP and have to wait 30 days, we're probably going to miss that window of opportunity. that we have.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Will.
Oh, yep, sorry.
All right, item number 5, go ahead.
Back when this huge life interruption started, we came forward, I think it was the first board to come forth and pass a resolution making sure that we can continue to pay all Southwest ISD employees and giving authority to the superintendent to make decisions in their place during that time. So we had quick turnarounds. And so I really want to extend appreciation for your trust in Southwest ISD and myself. But we think we've come to a really good kind of ending point to sunset that resolution and give that authority back to the board.
Well, he covered it, so,
What it did to that man.
yeah. So all I'm asking the board is to expire the resolution.
Loses all that weight.
So it'll expire the resolution, making it effective Saturday night, June 6th, and it'll be in effect starting June 8th. So the authority that you gave the superintendent in place of the board of trustees will cease and desist at that point.
Well, you just got a few days to get what you want done.
I wouldn't do that, Miss Ida.
All
So
right, I need a motion.
I move. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
okay, Brent, you still with me?
Motion carried.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item information, demographic study update.
Yes, today I have with me Brent Alexander. He's from School District Strategies. You've met him previously. He comes every year and gives us kind of our update on our demographics that's going on in the district. We've been planning this for a while now. I know Brent's been working vigorously to get us our data. It's, he's having to deal with COVID and dealing with the development. And it's really with the housing and seeing where our housing development's happening. So we have a lot of really good things happening across our district. And even though we're dealing with the pandemic, we're seeing things turn for the best. At first, it looked like it was going to turn for the worst. And so Brent I'm going to turn it over to him. He's got some of our demographic studies for the whole population of our district. He's going to talk specifically about our enrollments and our projections, and then really about construction going on in our district. So Brent, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Brandon. Dr. Verstappen, Mr. Frazier, board members, I have the 2019-20 demographics update for you all this morning. Let's begin by taking a look at the latest numbers that we get from our national data source on the overall population in the district. For 2019, there were a little more than, I should say just under 64,000 people living in the district and about 17,730 total households. So about a 0.3% increase based on what we saw a year ago. Now, what you see here are the annual snapshot numbers for official enrollment. So the official enrollment for the 19-20 school year was 13,864. You can see that the net increase over the last 5 years has been 314 students, but over these last 10 years, district enrollment has increased by a little more than 2,300. At just under 14,000 students, Southwest ISD is the 7th largest district in Greater San Antonio based on total enrollment. You can see here all of the official 19-20 total enrollments for all of the districts, about 30 districts that make up the Greater San Antonio area. This slide shows the annual growth rates. Note that this past year, the district's net increase was 105 students. That's just under 1% growth. The 3-year trend is still down slightly, but it's essentially flat. You look at the 5-year trend, it's about 0.5% growth rate. When you compare that to what other districts in the region are seeing, Southwest was the 12th fastest growing district based on the 5-year percentage growth. Now here are the numbers for each attendance level in 2-year increments for the past 10 years. Note that middle school and high school have continually grown for most of the last decade. We've seen middle school down just slightly over these last 2 years, but generally much larger than it was back in 2009. Where the district has seen more declines is in the elementary. You can see in the K-5 population, which is down 9.1% since 2015. This last 2 years, with the changes made to pre-K, that number is now up to 837. These are the grade level numbers for the last 15 years in more detail. You can see here highlighted in red are the largest classes that the district has seen per grade over this 15-year period. What's important to note is that we've talked about in the last couple of years is the internal bubble within the district. That really is that wave of growth that came in prior to 2012. Those kids have aged up and are mostly in high school grades today. And you can see how the totals, especially at elementary, have fallen behind that wave of growth over these last several years. But what's promising to see is that not only are the pre-K numbers up, we've seen kindergarten, second grade, both kindergarten and second grade trend up from 18 to 19. But you do have to deal with the fact that the average grade size from 5th through 10th grade is about 200 larger than what we're seeing currently in K through 3. The coverage model rates are in the report for your reference, as well as the totals by grade for each campus. I'm going to move ahead here and talk about the birth rate versus kindergarten. Just note that the numbers that you see on the blue line for the local birth rate, these last two numbers represent the birth rate for 2014 and 2015. Those were the highest numbers that the State Health Department has reported over the last 10 years. So also encouraging for incoming kindergarten going forward. Now, one of the things that has really constrained enrollment growth in the district has been the expansion of charter schools and open enrollment from neighboring school districts. So what you have here on this chart is the TEA's transfer report. So remember, this is the report where through PEIMS they track students that live in one district but attend a school in another public school district or charter school. And you can see the dramatic change that has occurred with students living in Southwest ISD since 2015. The report for 1920 showed 1,745 students living in the district but attending elsewhere. So again, that's really what has kept the district from growing much faster. Or what we thought, 5 years ago when we were looking out. This is the big change. But you all have also started to let in more students from outside the district, so that's why we see that number on the transfer in go up a little bit as well here on this chart. But when you look at where the students are coming in from, students from Northside ISD represent the most transfers in, but you're probably more interested in where are the kids going. We've seen the number that are attending school in San Antonio ISD continue to trend up. And then this last year, we saw the number jump significantly that live in Southwest but are attending school in South San Antonio. We've seen that number jump over the last year. The charter schools, especially led by IDEA Public Schools, you can see here the dramatic impact they've had. Just in 2015, 66 students, it's 882 with their multiple campuses that sit on the district boundary. Some other student demographic characteristics are included here. Note that the racial and ethnic distribution of the student population remains unchanged. We did see, I'll move forward here to the economically disadvantaged. The official number for the school year was 84%, so that's down a little bit from what we saw last year. The geocoding is represented here in the next few slides. We mapped 13,871 students this year. Again, about 96% of the students live within the district boundary. A few more students live outside the boundary this year as the district has allowed a few more transfers. The totals for each area, remember these maps will show you the all grades and students in all grades, but using the elementary attendance zones. And then here's middle school attendance zones with all students, and the same for high school. It's interesting when you look at those high school boundaries, how balanced the student enrollment is for each of those geographic areas. But more important is looking at where the district has seen enrollment growth and declines. We've compared our spring 2015 geocoding to the spring 2020 mapping on this slide. So you can see the district has grown through much of the district, but we do see that McAuliffe area as well as up in the Big Country, Cree-Wall Road area where we've seen the enrollment decline. Most of that decline has come in K through 2. You can see the comparison of K through 2 enrollment by elementary zone, and you can see how the losses have occurred mostly in the areas that feed into McAuliffe Middle School. Now, there's a section in here on the macroeconomics. As we shift gears and look at what's driving enrollment growth and where we're headed, I'm going to move quickly through these. Heading into COVID-19, San Antonio produced, Greater San Antonio builders produced the most activity since 2007-8. When you go through, and the employment numbers were fantastic, but obviously post-COVID-19, we've seen dramatic losses. So these are the numbers through April, or year over year through the end of April. And the key point here is to note that through the COVID-19 situation, home building was maintained the essential business, and most of the builders continued on, even though they did have to close or chose to close their model homes. But we only are now hearing from the builders that it was about a 2 to 3 week drop. And since Easter, the activity has been very strong. And now what was back in March and early April, builders looking like 2020 would be down 40 to 50%, now only looks like a 10 to 20% decline in the number of homes that they're planning to build this year. So one of the things that the builders continue to tell us that is a positive is the interest rate. You see here the 30-year interest rate at 3.23 for a 30-year mortgage that is the all-time low. And some builders are even offering 2.99 if you go with the mortgage company. Basically what I'm trying to tell you is this is what continues to drive the sales, and sales here these last several weeks reportedly have been very, very good. Now, these are the numbers within the district for the existing homes. Through the end of March, 756 existing homes were sold at a record median price at just about $185,000. So you can see the existing values continue to go up. But more importantly, on the new home side, there were 651 houses started, 577 closings. So this, back to what Mr. Chris was talking about at the beginning of the report, is these are some very positive numbers for future growth. These new home construction numbers represent the most activity that we've counted in the district in more than a decade. So you can see just on the year-over-year basis, actual occupancies are up 105%. Developers are trying to keep up with the demand. They delivered 590 new single-family lots in the district through the 12-month period ending in March. The current activity ranks 9th among all the school districts in greater San Antonio. And the growth has been driven by several neighborhoods, in particular the Tesoro Hills, where Camino Properties build all of the, spec'd out that final section of the Tesoro Hills that was dormant for a long time. But then we've seen new subdivisions like Cinco Lakes out on Loop 1604 west of the high school. Look at that, they started 182 houses in the last 12 months, with the first 84 now moved into. And then down south, we've seen quite a bit of activity. Preserve at Medina, as well as Marbella in Misiones is now built out, and now the new Los Altos is open. We've also seen in the southwest Elementary Zone, Lucky Ranch, the phase developed. Remember, most of Lucky Ranch is in Medina Valley ISD, and we've seen a section built in Southwest, and that has also been very popular. And then Solana Ridge continues to be a top producer for the Horton Express there in the district. I have some photographs coming up of these projects, but if you look at the data based on the tenant zone, Southwest, Spicewood Park are the leaders for most of the activity. You look at it from the middle school perspective, Resnick and McNair are the leaders. And then most of the closings have been on the legacy side, but you can see with the activity on the western side of the district, we're going to see that shift towards the Southwest High School side, or even just be a little bit more balanced as we move forward. The prices of the homes are generally under $250,000, so we're seeing a mixture of entry-level and first move-up type homes. The district's current median new home price is $218,000, and that's a new record high. So just inventory numbers are shown here. At the end of March, 539 were available. Another 966 are under development. So again, a lot of lots coming, and this is another indication that the confidence that the new home builders have in the district as they bring more lots to the south side of San Antonio. Also note that there is a new apartment complex that is coming through planning and zoning. It is called Trader Flats, and it is the land is basically just to the south of Mayo Creek Elementary, and that is for 324 units. So we'll continue to watch to see that when that one will start development. So coming behind all of the lots that are currently under development, there's another 7,300 lots that are planned, have been listed out here in the table. We have potentially a big change coming for the district. You know, we've watched the Verano at City South property that's down on the Loop 410 west of, in the far southeast corner of the district. You know, that property has been dormant now for almost a decade, and back at the end of the year, South Star Communities, the developer, Mission del Lago, which is a little bit outside the district to the east, have been working on purchasing that development. The city of San Antonio in January approved the transfer of the taxing district to South Star. So going into COVID, we were looking at this property being sold to the new developer, and the new developer plans to rename the project Vita San Antonio, and they're talking about 5,700 total residences. So this would be a mixture of single-family homes, townhomes, duplexes, and apartments. Plus, you would have your retail and dining mixed in with those properties. So I know that Mr. Crisp is working or is in contact with them to see the progress of that report, but that's something that we've watched now for over 10 years, and to see that property change hands is a very exciting thing to see for the district. South Star has made some public comments that they had hoped to start a development as early as this April, but today I have not seen anything started. But if they do start soon, we could see the first lots delivered sometime late in 21, probably now looking at spring of 22. There's a district map. I'll show you some pictures here from January. First up here is Marbella, Misiones, and Los Altos. You can see this is where Los Altos is Century Communities, and then KB Home is the builder in Misiones and Marbella. Habitat for Humanity has a 67-lot subdivision called Rancho Carlota. It's under development now down Watson Road. And then also down on Watson Road near Toyota is Reserve at Medina, where LGI has been building. Note that the land just north here on the left-hand side of the picture, that is the start of another future subdivision that's come through the San Antonio here recently. If you move back up into the Sun Valley area, you have Cremona Hills here on the left, but you can see Solana Ridge in the middle of the picture, where D.R. Horton Express has been building. And you can see that a year ago they were working on the section up here on the northwest side, and now they have 2 additional sections that are underway. And then here's a photograph of Cinco Lakes. Again, here's 1604. This is south of 90 in the southwest zone. This is Syntex and MI Homes are building in here. And then Lucky Ranch that I mentioned earlier, you can see the portions that are Medina Valley, but then the land, the section that sold quickly in Lucky Ranch, and then there are more lots coming in Southwest ISD. And then if you go all the way up on the north side, we're still seeing Stone Creek with a few lots finishing up, but note that there is a new subdivision coming called Glenwood Village. It'll basically fill in the area here. This is one of IDEA's campuses that'll be just to the south of that location. All right, so going forward, we're looking at the district producing about 517 closings here for the 12 months through September, and then averaging just under 500 homes per year through 2024. So one thing to note on my forecast here is we don't have anything included yet for Vita San Antonio. We'll probably know more in a year what we're looking at once we're able to see the mixture of lots that they're planning. But if they do what they've typically done in South Star communities, what they've done in Mission Del Lago, and even build on that, we could see the number of homes in the district per year climb to 500 to 700 a year instead of just being around the 480 range. But even without Vita included, you're still looking at 2,400 homes, potentially the next 5 years, 4,700 homes over the next 10 years. So what does that mean for enrollment growth? Well, we continue to use the geocoding to track the student yields. This year, the single family rate was 0.59 students per occupied home. That number did trend down slightly from where it's been these last couple of years. But note that is the result of several new houses there in the new subdivisions like Cinco Lakes, seeing low yields initially. That's not unusual. The target buyer are young families. So this could be the combination of young couples that have kids that are under age 6. It could also be Some of the kids may be finishing up school in another school district and then enroll in the fall. But we do expect those yields to come up next year, start inching up towards 0.6 over the next several years. The apartment developments are yielding an average of 0.65 students per unit. Note that that actually is trended up a little bit. And the reason for that is we see the Esperanza at Palo Alto apartments have a few more students than what we saw a year ago. So when you do the forecast for all of the individual neighborhoods and the yield for each neighborhood, you end up with these projections. We're looking at the net increase there on the moderate of being about a 0.2% annual growth rate. Now remember, even though we see quite a bit of growth coming, remember that those larger classes that are currently in 5th to 10th grade, that are about 200 larger than the early grades, remember those are going to be exiting. So you do have that built-in drop each year. So there is some plateauing here around 14,000 that we're expecting for the next few years. But if the growth continues as expected, then we should see that growth rate climb much higher. Capacity-wise, most of the campuses are in good shape. The only campuses that do face any potential overcrowding are Bob Hope, and then Southwest Elementary in Spicewood Park. But even that is probably 6 to 7 years down the road at the fast growth rate. Middle and high school capacities are in good shape right now. All right, I'll turn it back over to you for any specific questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brent. Anything for Brent, or if you have any follow-up questions, you can just let me know and I can get to Brent and talk to him about it. But right now we're looking at we're seeing growth in specific areas and we're seeing no growth in specific areas. And so it's about, I plan on taking some of this to the growth and planning just to look at strategic planning over the next 3 to 5 years, and 10 years out, where we possibly might need a campus and where we may need to do something different somewhere else. And so that's kind of like where we are now. He mentioned VITA. VITA will be the one that we really need to keep our eyes on, because that could spark a lot of growth in the next 4 to 5 years, really in Legacy area. Legacy's capacity is about 2,500, and we're right at about 2,100. And so that's something we need to look at. Our middle schools are good. Spicewood could be a campus that you can see they have a lot of growth, and we may have to look at redoing boundaries in the future to kind of alleviate some of that, or possible campus. And so,
Do you think we're gonna need an elementary part, will be the next?
so the question we'll have to discuss is capacity-wise across, we have room. But location-wise, it may not be a best fit. So where we're seeing low enrollment in our elementaries, I'll use examples in the McAuliffe area,
Right.
where we have classes of 500 where there used to be 700,
Yeah.
versus Spicewood and if you look at the Preserve, you look at VITA, where
Right.
you're going to have lots of students, they may be having a campus built out there and using a campus over here to do something else with. So it's not, so like we have 11, we would still have 11, but it may be relocating a campus, but we would have a future build up there.
If we think that we need a future building in elementary, what is the timetable? Like, is that in the next 5 years or like in the next 10 years?
Yeah, 5 to 6 based on this data right here,
Mhm.
this is not including VITA. If you look at Southwest Elementary and especially Spicewood,
Mhm.
we'll have capacity issues around year 5 and year 6 of Spicewood and Southwest Elementary.
So we would have to start planning when?
We would want to start playing now with growth and planning to look at that and then monitor, and depending on what happens with those developments, because right now the developers are saying everything's moving smoothly, but we don't know what's going to happen here in the next 6 months right now. The environment.
If the VITA comes online for sure, then we're gotta move quickly.
We need to look at probably getting a site.
Mhm.
We have a site at Legacy right now, so that would be a possibility. And then we'd have to look at redoing boundaries, like Southwest Elementary and some other
Do
places.
we still have that site where in the Texas A&M area, or?
Well, that's the part. Go ahead, sir.
That would be that they're offering us, so school site, because we talked about the need of the middle school in that area. And responsibility, looking at the 5 to 10 year growth in that area. We have an elementary site already next to Legacy. We have an elementary site primarily. We have an elementary site in Panhandle,
Hillcrest.
And so one thing we're going to take the growth and planning is potential for high school sites in the future, which is a conversation we're going to have with the larger group and bring it back to the board.
So nobody does demographics better than Brent, and so I think he knows our district better than I do when you hear him, because this is really good information, and it pretty much in the past has come to fruition. And I think that's what we want to take to the big task force and bring back to the board. This is the direction they would like to go. We think we need to secure 1 or 2 more property sites, and we'll be ready for the future.
Yes, sir.
This is an excellent report, and spent a lot of time studying this. I was wondering, and I may have missed it, but have you factored in charter schools in any way at all in terms of their potential growth or market share?
You know, I think that's the challenge of all school districts, because we have to factor in, because we get a factor, say we have 500 homes, Brent has a number that's producing those students and where they're going. That may be something, Brent, I don't know if anywhere else you're factoring in a number that would be an impact from a charter system. Because currently we don't have that formula. Yeah, we need to really take into
So
account.
this does not factor that.
But the other factor is,
Go ahead, Brent.
we see a lot of. Go ahead, Brent.
I was just going to say that the number can be built in a little bit to the yield being low. You know, typically these neighborhoods should be producing more like a 0.6, 0.7. So if you're only seeing a 0.3, then there's a little bit of a factor there that those kids just move into that home, but they never enrolls. But typically what we're seeing is IDEA opens, and then incrementally each year as they expand, you might lose 40, 50 students in that general area that's near the campus. The challenge we have with the charters is that they can pull from anywhere, and the driving distance that we've seen from parents, it can be 20, 30 minutes away. So there's schools that are going to open up near Shirts and in the fall, and even to the north, they could potentially even pull kids around 410 as people drive to work in those northern areas of San Antonio. So we try to factor it in our projections as best we can, but there's not an exact way to quantify it.
All right, Brent, thank you, sir. We got to wrap it up. I appreciate it. If they have more questions, I'll get them to you and we can answer for them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That was it, sir. Unless you have more questions on the demographics.
Anybody? All right, thank you. All right, UT, Blending Learning Professional Development.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Frazier, board members, Dr. Verstep, and senior staff. Due to the current situation, our Southwest ISD teachers and our students, as you know, have immediately transitioned into a blended learning platform for teaching and learning without very little background knowledge, training, or experience. In an effort to support our faculty as they pivot to remote teaching, Southwest ISD has collaborated with the University of Texas in Austin to complete a blended learning survey for the current status of the district. The results did show that we are in a developing state. So it is prime opportunity for us. I'm sorry, I may move this. Can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I don't know how you were doing it.
Prime opportunity for us to be able to engage in a grant that TEA has provided school districts in partnership with the university to be able to provide 30 hours of professional development to our, what I call our people on ground zero, or our immediate staff who are engaged in being able to provide students with that remote type of learning. So the teachers that we have anticipated right now are approximately about 50 teachers at elementary, middle school, and high school levels, And what we did is we targeted the English language arts and reading teachers in 5th grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade. And so this program in itself will take about 30 hours, and they have about 3 months to complete the program. And it's a $1,000 initial cost up front for each participant. We have assured that each of our teachers has signed an agreement that they are going to complete the program. The program also has, with the university, about a 98% completion rate. So they have been very successful in ensuring that those teachers are very well supported to be able to complete the program. Because after they complete the program and they get that certification or those 30 CEU hours, then TEA will turn around and reimburse us for that money. So again, it's a prime opportunity, and this has nothing to do with the presentation, but we wanted to bring that to you as an item of information to show how we are supporting our teachers, and we're making sure that there's a continued effort to be able to support them instead of just jumping onto the platform as everybody had to do to go to remote learning and not really having any of that type of experience or background, to be able to show how we're going to provide them with that support and some professional development to be able to really move towards a district who does provide a blended learning environment.
Are we paying the teachers to do this training?
No, it's all voluntary right now.
Other questions?
Is it self-paced or are they? Okay, so they do it on their own time whenever they can.
It's really well set up, and a big great thing. We moved to an emergency platform, and now what we're trying to do is create a viable, sustainable virtual learning platform. This is a legit district, and the grant program it will come as an action item at the regular board meeting.
Any questions?
Anybody? Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to go ahead and transition into our next section, which Ms. Bonnie Robinson is going to help me transition into. And so at one of the previous sessions, our board meetings, we did have questions from the board members asking, especially Ms. Yolanda, as to how do we know where our students are, right? What are we going to do when they get back? How are we going to know how much of that COVID slide they're going to have, and then how are we going to address that? So as TEA has been putting out a lot of information to be able to support districts, some of their resources are very cumbersome. They're very extensive, and we have had the opportunity to go through a lot of those. So that way our principals and our teachers and staff don't have to do that. And in doing so, we quickly realized to ensure the validity of the student data that we're gathering, that we use a reliable resource. So Bonnie and her team, and she'll go into it in a little bit about the details, put together a task force, including campus representation, to be able to come up with an end-of-year checklist and some milestones that are aligned specifically to the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, for teachers to be able to fill out and say, this is what I know about my student, this is where I know that he or she left off, and these are the essential milestones and TEKS that need to be targeted as a second grader before that second grader moves into third grade. And so we were able to do that with every single content, and it was done at the elementary and at the secondary level as well. Now go ahead and turn it over.
She did a great job. I don't know if you have anything else to say, but I did prepare a presentation. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. And so I just want to take you through the process. And so as we're in an ever-changing world and we are really in uncharted territory, a lot of these things just evolve just as we saw a need. And so it's still evolving. We're still coming together. We're still discussing things as we see the need comes up. And so basically, what is a milestone? And so what we decided is that we have, those are the essential TEKS. So when we look at the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills statements, in a certain grade level, they're broken into two categories. One is readiness and one is supporting. But we have lots of TEKS. And I'm not saying that there's one TEK that's more important than the other, but there are some that are very essential, that are the foundational piece for one grade level to be successful in another. To give you just a quick example, I was a fourth grade teacher for many years, and I'm going to give you two TEKS. One is division and being able to divide with fluency and automaticity, and the other is something that's called a STEM leaf plot. They're both readiness skills, but a STEM leaf plot is just a way of looking at data and being to organize it that way. So of those two things in real life, STEM leaf plot is important, if you want to go into statistics and go into data and have that as your professional outlook in life. But division is much more important as a lifelong skill than a STEM leap. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so what we did is we figured out what were those essential TEKS for reading and math. Right now, that's what was our concentration. What is it that the students had to be able to master to be able to be successful in that next year? So these were prepared for every grade level. Why do we need them? It was helping us to focus and pinpoint what did we need to focus on during remote learning. Because again, we want to focus on all TEKS, but we really want to make sure during remote learning, we're getting those essential TEKS taught. And then it also was on vertical alignment to look to see what is it that you need in kinder to be a successful first grader. So then once we created those milestones, it was then it's why did we collect this information? So collecting this information was once we created these milestones, we did come together with a task force as Velia had mentioned. But then the commissioner came out and said, we need to collect some kind of data at the end of the year because we're not going to be able to have the STAR test, and that if we're going to drive, what's going to help us drive instruction, we had to get some information. TEA and the commissioner recommended that we give a STAR-like assessment to our kids at home. I think like teachers, I think about those families and the parents that would have to get their kids online and watch them take a test for 4 hours. Just wasn't something I wanted to have the students of Southwest ISD do. The committee members agreed with me wholeheartedly. They said no, they did not want them to take a STAR assessment. Plus, we wouldn't know if those it would only be for third grade on up. We wouldn't have any information for K through 2, and we cannot verify the validity of that data because older brothers and sisters or parents could help them as well. So the other reason why we wanted to come up with a checklist is the last time we had a formal assessment was in January and February with either the District Common Assessments or the BEAM. So it had been a long time since we had collected any data. We need this information to help us with the beginning of the school year with review dates when it comes to the year at a glance and scope and sequence. Where do we need to fit things? We've already made a decision that we have to switch the 8th grade science around so that we're reviewing something that was at the end of the 7th grade. We want to teach it right away in the beginning of 8th grade. So we're making those decisions to make the transition much smoother so that there's no learning gaps from at the beginning of the school year. Again, like I said, we're making these decisions. These will help us to make the decisions for our continuity plans. And the continuity plans are basically to help us to close those learning gaps that have occurred. Face-to-face instruction is the way that everyone is used to. Our teachers did a fabulous job with remote learning, but it's not the same as face-to-face. We all know that. So we do anticipate what we're calling a COVID slide because they talked about summer slides. This is a COVID slide, and so that's how we refer to it. And then this information, if it's collected, we wanted it to be for from one grade level to next, so that as if I'm a 4th grade teacher or an 8th grade teacher and I'm getting my list for the very first time, I can look to see what were the thoughts and beliefs of the teacher below, and that I had that quick data right away at the first day of school. So we did create a task force, because now we're moving from a milestone to a checklist. And so we didn't want to just create the checklist. We wanted, again, we had a task force when it came to creating the milestones. We wanted to make sure, do we want to align these 2 documents? Do we want them to be the same? And the committee members said yes, that they wanted them to be the same. They met and they came up, we presented this then to principals. They were all on board. And that we, again, were just honing in on those essential TEKS that are needed from one grade to the next. Here's an example so that you can see one. Here's an elementary example that we created. It's we put reading. Let's try to make it a little smaller. We put reading and math on the same page because at an elementary level, we have a document that's called Pink and Blues. And it basically is basic information that pink is because it's a girl, blue it's because it's a boy. We use those to basically help decide how many the classes for the next year. So this would be information that would go along with it. We basically just wanted a yes or no. Lead Forward, another company that is very prominent when it comes to data, wanted to have the teachers to go give a rating of approaches, meets, and masters. We felt again that was way too hard for teachers to make the decision between meeting and not meeting, mastering and not mastering. So we just wanted them, did they meet it, yes or no? And so the notes then are for the campuses, but these are just some examples of third grade of what the milestones look like. And then here's an example of a secondary because they are dealing with a lot more students. So here they have their students along the edge, and that's it because it's more conducive for a secondary collection.
Bonnie, are they doing this at the end of the school year or at the beginning or both?
So what we have decided is that all the teachers are doing it now. So we did this presentation about 3 weeks ago, and we trained all of our MCLs, which are our coach-like position at the middle school level, and our academic coaches, and then they presented it to their teachers. So the due date for elementary was on Friday, and the coaches made sure that everyone was in, and they did. And the due date for middle school is going to be this Friday. The principals want to extend that. So they've been, teachers have already been, it's been presented to them. They've already collected the data, and it's in Eduphoria.
Okay.
And so that's the next part I was going to bring up.
Bonnie, I have a question, real quick.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Are you all going to provide that information to the parents? Because as a parent, I'd like to know where my child was at the end of this year. So we can do, I mean, parents that want to can do some remediation in the summer so they're not quite so behind.
Yeah, that would be a great thing. We can, and what I can do is I can suggest that to all the academic coaches to have send out a letter on remind if there's this information has been collected that parents can get it if they would like to.
Yeah.
It is pulling a report. Though it's just a yes or a no, and so it would have the milestone, and it's the teacher then the data that they've collected, and it would say yes they met it or no they didn't. We felt it was going to be better because this is again it's teachers' opinions and the things that they had collected from the assessments that they had back in February and January, but we didn't have anything at all. So but teachers are with them day in and day out. And their opinions are very valid to me. When I was a 4th grade teacher, I wanted to hear what the 3rd grade teacher had to say about my students.
It's just something that we might just consider if the parent, maybe the teacher could be their point of contact and just say, what can I help my child with over the summer?
And a recommendation. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And again, we'll use this information. And the last thing is that we just want to make sure that we said it many times that this was not a reflection of teachers or their teaching. It's the situation that it was in. It was not punitive. We're not going to rank the teachers. We're not going to look at that kind of information. It really is going to help us to go back to the division question. If as a district it says that 60% of our kids are not doing well in division, then we know in the pacing guide we have to allow more time in 5th grade. Because that's a 4th grade concept. In 5th grade, we're going to need to have some reviewing time with division with whole numbers before they get into decimals. That's all I have.
Perfect.
That's really good.
That is great.
I do want to give a shout out to all my content people. I could not have done this without them. And so I have a fabulous group of 6 people that anytime I have a crazy idea that we need to do this for kids, they're on board. And so I just want to give them a shout out.
Well, it's really exciting, Bonnie, that you guys are so ahead of the curve that you're already going to plan to, make up for those gaps because we know that they're going to exist. It's just, what are they, right? So it's really good that you guys are going to be very aware come next school year what we need to do.
The last thing just to share, and I know I got to go on, but we also have the website that we made it to was very parent friendly, and that every resource that's going to be on the On Track website this summer has taken all the teacher activities off and only put it to where it's easy for parents to navigate and students to navigate. So that's something else.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, student academic progress during COVID-19?
So I think that's the one we just went through. I think the group did the grant. They went into that item, Mr.
Right,
Frazier.
let's go to the next one then.
I have a request. Can we skip to item G at this point in time before we get to the budget? Item G is it's another grant.
You got it.
And it's an item of information that should only take about 3 minutes. That way we can get that information out to you.
You can go in whatever order you'd like, sir.
That's the only out of order I'm asking for today. And we'll come back to budget and finish in
I'll
order.
just point to you and you do whatever you want.
Just give him the gavel.
It's a smorgasbord of items today.
He's got a parade days.
Good afternoon. Thank you for adjusting the agenda order.
Oh, I only do what I'm told.
Thank you. So we want to talk about a grant opportunity for our schools for advanced placement teachers, which we are dealing with our college readiness grant and then also are laying the foundation. So we wanted to provide some information about an opportunity for our students.
So through this grant, which is through the National Math and Science Institute, it partners with our high schools to increase AP readiness, AP support for teachers, and AP support for students. So our quick presentation, there's two components to it. There's a college readiness program, and then there's a program called Laying the Foundation that Zelene will go over. So on the college readiness side that supports the high school, there's a teacher support, student support, and school support, as you see up on the screen. So in each of those areas, as they support teachers through the college readiness program, there's a 4-day summer institute. This year it's going to be all virtual, that they take teachers through to help them look at content and strategies for best practices. A lot of times as we think about our AP teachers, they're on a lone island on the campus and they have no support. So they introduce the teachers to a group of other teachers who are teaching the same content nationwide. Then there's ongoing training throughout the year. There's 2 days in the fall where teachers get together, a day in the spring. And then there's ongoing support as little as monthly, but as much as weekly. Through what they call teacher villages, where they take the teachers who are teaching a content and they're actually collaborating. If they have questions, they reach out to their teacher village and they're helping to support those teachers in the AP program. There's also resources that can be provided, supplies for certain courses. There's a teacher honorarium for attendance and participation in the program. And then there's online student supports where they can actually go in and get support through the classes in the areas of English, math, science, and then computer science. It is a STEM initiative, but English is added into there because they feel that students need that reading and writing, that's the foundation. So that is very important to them. So they added English into that. As far as schools, there is a leadership summit. So it's a 2-day training to help support the leaders on a campus. And it's whoever the campus decides. So we have a small number of AP teachers. We might want to identify one leader, 1 or 2 leaders to go through this. But what they do is they actually show them what to look for in AP classrooms, how to support AP teachers. Because again, as an administrator, a lot of times you're in those classrooms and seeing what's happening, but how can you truly provide good feedback and support for them? So that is something that they do for those leaders. And then there's an online portal that leaders can access for resources and information to help support teachers.
So as Jackie was mentioning, our high school teachers do have the AP support, but sometimes because of the sections that are offered, they may be just singletons. So I may be an AP World History teacher, but I only have 2 sections at, for example, Southwest High School. And I don't have another teacher to collaborate. So I'm collaborating with the other AP teachers. So they do receive the support in that sense. For our middle schools, we're looking at honors courses for all 3 grade levels. And so we would be looking at math, science, and English. So it's also a 4-day training for our middle school teachers, because we know that the work starts at the elementary, moving to middle and moving to high school for our students who are seeking dual credit or any AP classes. So they would also, our teachers would take virtual classes for 4 days during the summer. What the district commitment would be a 2-year partnership with NIMSI.
and we're looking at $90,000 to $100,000, but that match, we're looking at a match of 10% that we would be paying. So that $9,000, $10,000 could be used, the match could be used for teachers attending professional development. That would count as a match, so it's not actually money that we are paying to the institute. They would be counting different services that we offer or other events that teachers do attend. So for the high school, we're looking at the AP Language Literature and also AP Calculus, and then looking at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade honors courses for middle school. So we just wanted to bring this opportunity to the board to let you know that Southwest does have the opportunity for our middle school and our high school students. Do we have any questions?
Anybody?
And again, this will be an action item at the June 16th meeting, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene, Jackie.
Where would you like to go now, sir?
Back to item D, and we'll just finish in that order, sir. D, E, F.
May I ask one thing?
Yes, sir.
That you get with somebody and put a clock up there so we know what time
sir.
it is.
We'll clock up there June 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. How you doing? So I'm going to jump right in on the budget, and I'm going to cover some pieces more than others. Some of the pieces that you got last time, I will say that I'm continuously running through my revenue projections and running different projections just to have and I'm not doing anything with them now. What we're trying to collect is all our data, like our ADA, and trying to formulate our data right now. We only really have 4 weeks worth of data. The last 6 weeks, we're using previous data from last year. And so depending on the weight and the formulas, we're getting more guidance from TEA on a weekly basis on how to calculate all that stuff. And so really right now, just to figure out our revenue for this year is already still a challenge. And I'm going to get into, so one way that the state and the federal government's dealing with our losses, potential losses of revenue, and it's going to be through some funding that we got from the CARES Act. First of all, I wanted to cover our expenses so far. We're dealing with a time that none of us are used to, but we actually have implemented some things to help deal with the crises. First of all was the premium pay. We use premium pay for those employees, especially our hourly employees, most of our para staffs that had to come into work during the crisis period, like our cafeteria staff, some bus drivers that we used. And so currently premium pay will be ending this week, because we're going to start our summer school program and begin hiring people. It's for summer school, and it's off with their old contract. And since we are ending that, right now we have a running tab about $560,000 that we spent on paying people this premium pay. And so that is an expense that we didn't see, or, it's one of those unforeseen things. Currently, we paid all our substitutes, the majority of them up through the time, and just our substitute budgets are tracking with overages right now. So right now I'm about $36,000 over, and we have another payment coming out, so that's going to be up a little bit. The biggest loss and the biggest area of concern for me and in the budget is going to be child nutrition, because although child nutrition is a federally funded program and it's based on meals served, we've been serving meals, and it's maintaining the program that we're doing on a daily basis, but we have a lot of cafeteria staff that's not having to work, and we're not serving as near as many as we used to when we have school. And so we have losses on that side, and right now, and it's mostly in staffing because we're still paying all those employees. And so we're around $900,000 where the child nutrition staff, our child nutrition department will have to probably come to the board, and I'll be with Winston to use their fund balance. He has about 1.6 in the child nutrition fund balance, but he's going to have a deficit by the end of the year. And so we're tracking at about 900,000 right now. It could go up a little more, just depends on, the expenses that we continue to incur. Yes, ma'am.
Does that include the premium pay?
That does not. I'm tracking the premium pay separately.
Separate? Okay.
These are for the rest of the child nutrition staff that are funded basically that didn't have to work, or even though it's the regular salaries. So we're still paying all their regular salaries, and then we have the premium pay on top of that.
But it's because we're not making the
We're not
money from serving all those meals.
Yes, ma'am. And so it's the loss of revenue that he's gonna that what the child nutrition department's gonna see. We've spent about $100,000 in supplies for COVID, and that's mostly sanitary type stuff. And then we've contracted out some maintenance, and we've done some things and some consultants. And so we're tracking about 100,000, and that's continuing as we get into summer and we start doing more things. That number is going to go up. So really overall, between the two, general fund, we're around 800,000 in expenses that they're kind of unforeseen. Then child nutrition, we're around 900,000. For general fund for this year, though, depending on what happens with our revenue, I anticipate that we're going to put money into fund balance based on there's some other things like our utilities are way down. We're not having to turn the ACs on and the lights on and all that. We have hardly any fuel costs or any repairs and maintenance work that we're having to do on vehicles. And so there's areas that we will make up. But I will say this, 86% of our budget salary, and we've continued to pay everybody their salaries. So there's going to be really no savings on the salary side, but we will have savings in certain areas where we didn't spend some of those funds. And so payroll budget at the end of it may be under budget in some areas, especially overtime, premium pay, substitutes, that will use funds from where we have some of those expenses that we didn't take on, like fuel costs and utilities to help cover. So I don't anticipate us having to do anything with fund balance for the general fund side this year, except for the exception would be child nutrition, because they're funded federally, and when they don't make their revenue, general fund usually comes in, or their fund balance comes in, and then if we don't have any, then general fund will come in to help out. On the other side of this, yes, sir.
So let's talk about your hourly employees.
Yes, sir.
And you're paying them as if they were working.
Correct.
But at some point, you stop paying them.
For hourly employees that are, depending on their contract dates.
That's where I was.
Yes.
So the hourly employees, do they typically work in the summer?
We have 226 employees that do work in the summer that are hourly and para staff. So like our facilities and maintenance, they work year round. So they will be here this summer and they will be getting paid. Now our bus drivers, our cafeteria staff, instructional aides on campuses, they don't work during the summer most of the time. Our bus drivers, I'll take that back. Some bus drivers do when we do summer school, and some sign up for cafeteria staff when we do so we're still going to have a pretty vast, bigger than normal summer feeding program. So we're going to still have 9 schools feeding. So we'll have a lot of cafeteria staff still working. But our summer school programs, we're not having a lot of students we're transporting. Right now, it's a topic across the city to not even think about doing that. So our transportation staff who normally would work summer, and they will not be working this summer because we're not going to be transporting students unless things change pretty rapidly pretty soon.
Both of our summer school will be asking parents if we can face-to-face, get it off the ground, and some minimal aspect is to have very much practice with the children.
Now, as far as your regular staff, teachers, et cetera, you're paying them accordingly.
Correct. We annualize pay them, and so this Friday will be their last day of work. But when we sign them up, they get their checks over 12 months. So like they have a salary of $60,000, we break that over 12 months. So they're going to continue to get paid. Most all employees are annualized, even bus drivers. So they're still going to get a check. They just can't make extra. Correct.
But going back to what you just said, you're saying that if we do have face-to-face summer school, that we're going to ask the parents to bring them?
At this point in time today, because of the enclosures of the bus and the inability to make sure that we can put kids in a safest environment, yes, that would be the decision. Will that change in 2 weeks from now? It may very well change when we have our commissioner's thought in Fair County, if people feel safe enough to put kids on the bus, then we would offer some transportation. Well, we're going to have to figure out next year if we offer transportation, how we can put 12 kids on a 72 passenger bus to be able to deliver kids to the campus, because you have to follow social distancing protocols on the bus as well. So there's a lot of things in transportation that all districts are trying to figure out right now.
But I'm talking summer school. I mean, how hard would it be in summer school to put 12 kids on a bus?
Well,
I mean, we're not going to have as expanded of summer school as we normally have anyway. So if a kid really has to go to summer school, then if their parents work, then they can't go to summer school.
I'm not saying transportation is out of the question, but in our conversation in Bear County right now, no one is willing to address the transportation issue because of the enclosure aspect of it, because of the close contact with passing by bus drivers and figuring that out.
maybe we will by July, when we start summer school in July. But as of today, I don't think there's anyone willing to offer transportation to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
So that's covering kind of where we are right now and our expenses that are happening right now because of COVID. We do have 3 resources to go towards to kind of get some reimbursement. The first one is FEMA. We've already signed up for FEMA. We're working with FEMA, but pretty much with FEMA, all we're going to get reimbursed is our time and effort that we use to help clean and deal with the situation, and all the equipment that we're using to sanitize and clean the buildings. For the most part, technology and distance learning is not covered by FEMA. I did put an insurance claim in with our insurance for business interruptions. I don't see us getting anything out of that because most of our insurance is dealing with, similar to FEMA, is, okay, did you have property destruction? What are your revenue losses? And some of our revenue losses are really self-inflicted because we decided to pay premium pay and, really pay our substitutes. And so really, I'm working through the insurance. So we got 3 different places and they're all saying, well, go to that person for this. And so really our one that's going to really impact us is the CARES Act. It's called ESSER. It's the federal funds that the state got. And that's really where we're going to see the bulk of our funds come in. This will help us deal with any revenue loss on the foundation school side. So when I say foundation school, is we're trying to figure out as a system, a TEA, as a school system, how do we deal with ADA? Everybody knows that we're funded strictly on ADA. So when those kids show up every day, their average daily attendance, we turn in our numbers. They say, this is how many kids show up. Here's your check. And so we don't have that for the 5th and 6th 6 weeks, which is a major, it causes a fluctuation of your funding. And so in what the state's going to do, instead of paying us those funds, they're going to float through ESSER those revenue sources. And so we have to apply for it, but we are looking to get about $3.2 million in the CARES Act. But it's really to help us deal with that funding loss that we would have probably saw with the ADA. And so there's all these things coming out, and this is fairly new, and we're getting more and more guidelines, and it's going to take us a while to figure out. But there's an application, so we're going to apply for it. So pretty much the funding that we've put towards COVID and the deal with any revenue losses is going to come from the CARES Act. And then there's another coronavirus relief fund as part of it, and it's to help us pay for some of the sanitation and the cleaning and future cleanings. But it's up to like $50,000, and so you could see that we were already above that from our expenses previously, and we'll continue to buy more sanitizing, more wipes, more equipment, more things to put into our schools, getting through summer and getting into next school year. And so I left this in there for you. You can kind of look at it. I'm not going to go through every one because I know we're going to be short on time, but it tells you what the CARES Act. The greatest thing about the CARES Act, it's a federal fund, so it's like Title I funds. And Title I funds, and we're all Title I schools, are very, I don't want to say restrictive, but they have certain compliance rules, and this is what you have to do. This is more open. So, I mean, if we need it for utilities, we use utilities. If we need it for staff, we can use it for staff. And pretty much what we're going to do for the 1920 school year is we're going to go in and look at, we have a revenue loss here. What can we pay for with this money? And that's kind of how this money works. It's not going to be, this isn't money that we can do other stuff now. No. This is going to be for the loss that we have in revenue that we're going to see. So other takeaways, you kind of look at, I put up here the budget calendar. I already mentioned that I'm still projecting ADA. One thing about next school year, which is making it a little more difficult, we're trying to figure out, okay, if we go into a blended environment, the commissioner and TEA needs to tell us what that looks like as far as how do we project our ADA. Because if we end up like we are right now in this 5th and 6th weeks where there is no ADA because you don't take attendance, and I mean, so what formula are we going to use to project our revenue now? And so that's kind of, we're waiting and seeing, so I can't tell CNI and HR and curriculum what to do next year. Create a blended environment, come AB schedule, come half days, because we don't even know how the funding is going to work. So until they give us that guidance, we're really kind of planning without having the actual funding behind it. And so that's the key part as we move forward in the planning of budget and planning of what the school year looks like. We're all on board that we might be in the same boat and try to figure out a blended type environment, but are they going to fund it? And so that's kind of what we're waiting on as we look at ADA. And ADA is probably the most important thing right now because if they just fund us on enrollment, we're okay. They don't do that. They fund us on ADA. And so if we have no way to turn in our ADA as the year goes on, which is the same dilemma that we have right now. And they're giving us a pass now. they're saying, don't worry about it. We're going to still fund you, but they're doing it through the CARES Act.
But you're saying is they need to tell us how we're gonna count the kids.
Correct. And fund us.
And what days and what times and if they're at home or they're here.
Correct. Because right now they don't have that because that's what, at the 5th and 6th weeks, we're not turning in attendance. And they
Right.
say, okay, here's a waiver, fill it out, you'll be fine. Well, I don't doubt they're going to let us do that next year. So they need to tell us how they're going to come up with a plan.
Do we have any hints as to what they're thinking?
Yeah.
They came out with what we could do. They gave us calendar strategies and say you should try to look at doing a blended environment and do this. But on the
So
funding
what,
side,
so we can get the kids in the rooms and then we can count them? Or are they gonna be okay counting them if they're at home?
Bring more kids into the room.
Correct.
And there's an understanding that some parents are not gonna let the kids go to the room
Right,
for vaccine.
right.
So we understand there's two scenarios working.
Mhm.
So right now, all TA is doing is providing options. So, the hybrid option or year-round calendar or intersectional calendar, or you can do a traditional calendar with extended summer, which is where Bear County, all Bear County
Right.
schools are looking at, including summer opportunity with additional revenue. You do another 20 days in the summer, to kind of jumpstart a kid. Because we know there's going to be this gap
Yeah.
after this school year.
You could address
But what Ben is talking about is on the funding side of all that.
Right.
On the first day of school, we can't have students who are physically in the classroom to see. So that's going to change, especially.
I was just, are they,
virtual.
is their mind open that we're gonna count, that we wanna count kids at home as long as we have contact with them?
Yes.
Okay,
And everyone's trying to figure this out.
okay.
As we go down. Right now, it's about, let's get all the options out there. Then what we need to be able to formulate our budget is basically, this is how you're gonna be able to count enrollment, and then this is how you're gonna be able to configure our EJ, for funding purposes.
And are we gonna be like super duper conservative? Cause I feel like some parents are gonna be like, I'm not sending my kid to school.
well, I hope there's some way they can work out where we can count kids that are not there working remotely. That's the
right.
idea. Is that
That's
there's
it.
going to be some families that they're going to work at home and not want to come to physically to a class. How are we going to be able to fund those and how? That's the
And Brandon,
guidance we need on our side.
And we can tell if the kids are logging in, right? Like
Correct.
that would be our way to say, this child is coming to school. If-
We're worried about, they will fund those kids differently.
Yes.
Because they want to promote kids coming in face-to-face.
I think most parents are gonna have their kids on the bus the first day of school. I mean, I just really do. I
hope
just think
so.
parents are gonna put their kids in school because they're just.
Well, I have a lot of bus drivers that I need to have work for.
Yeah, it'll be 6 months that they've been home, and I don't think parents are gonna want that anymore.
Thank you.
If it was me, I'd have my kid on.
What
the bus.
about some of the kids that didn't we have some kids that were not found that we knew nothing about, or did we
We've worked
find
really good
everything?
to find those, and so we're
Good.
not making contact. I think we're in a really good shape. So I'm not really worried about it as much as them just not physically
Yeah.
wanting to come back and
Right.
coming up with a plan to formulate that funding.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of moving on real fast because I know I'm going to run out of time. So preliminary values, I have to tell y'all because we're required to. I don't know if y'all remember back before, they used to do prior year values. And so they used to make us do our budget on last year's values. So what that meant is our new values would come out right now and we would get these extra $1 million in taxes and they wouldn't know about it until next year. They said, oh, well, last year you got extra, so we're going to go ahead and cut your foundation payment. So it's called the state funding lag. Well, in the House Bill 3, they got rid of that. So now we're on prior year values. And so for districts that used to be ahead of that, we used to get a couple extra $1 million sometimes when our values grew really good. But it really hurt districts that had losses. So that it was reverse effect. So if our values went down, we would have lost funding and the state wouldn't have stepped in to help. So it helps the districts that were falling behind on values, but it doesn't really help us. And so part of this is our first year using this year's values. And unfortunately, why that's difficult is because we don't really have our real values yet. So there's still protests going on. And they certify them in July. And right now, because of COVID, they're slightly behind. And so they can maybe only have 85 to 90% of our values done by July 25th. And so we'll be setting tax rates and those things and looking at our budget. So we just have to monitor it. But I have to mention that because it's something that's part of a House Bill 3 that we have to mention.
Well, they're coming to get you.
Yeah,
They doubled my land value.
Oh, wow.
I protested it last year and this year they doubled it.
Well,
I might come to shoot you.
Don't shoot me. I don't do nothing with property values. We just have the rates. So some budget assumptions next year. We're looking at ADA, just continuing to look at it, depending on the enrollment. Looking at our values, our values are about $4 billion, which is up a little bit. It's about 8% increase. And we'll continue to work our tax rate. I have a count, this is in there. This is kind of where I'm at formula-wise. You can see that our taxes are going to go up, but when our taxes go up, our payment goes down from the foundation. And so we're tracking about 129 million. This is just general fund. So it's about the same. We're about 500,000, a little bit more than what we've had this year. That's if everything works out, depending on enrollment and those things. Some expenses, we're working through those. We've added some staff at CAS for the junior class. We have our Autism Academy that we're working through. That was a grant that's coming off. We're going to try to find a way to pay for that, but we may have to pick that up with general fund. And then we went through staffing, and so we've only added maybe 6 to 7 teachers across the district because of needs. Our enrollment, like you saw in the demographic study in elementaries, is actually where we're having to find places for teachers. Legacy added some teachers, and really across the board, we're pretty stable. So we didn't have to cut any teachers. It was all based on enrollment, so everything is going well. And then we have some miscellaneous positions. So we're tracking about 1.5, which is way down from our previous couple years back. I put on here to be announced because next year we'll have the biennium. I just wanted to mention that in January, the legislators will come back and discuss what they're going to do moving forward. And so that'll be an interesting year next spring again. And so we are going to prepare for that session. And what we're going to do is we're creating a business continuity group committee just to kind of look at programs, evaluate all the things that we have, not cut anything. Right now, what we're not doing is we're not hiring new positions, but we are adding in, if somebody leaves, we're replacing. We have the funds available. We've been told through the CARES Act really is that we have these funds that are going to supplement any of your revenue losses for this year, and we can use those funds to next year. So hopefully we don't have to cut anything. We're not cutting any budgets. What we do is maintain budgets. And so if your budget was $50,000, you're getting a $50,000 budget next year. So you're not going to see any budget cuts. We are looking at, we had a TASB study. I wanted to mention that because I know you mentioned about what about our staff that didn't get the bigger raise that the teachers got. So what we did a TASB study. We're planning on bringing that back to y'all with some recommendations. It's not about being, because we're looking at compensation, maybe not doing much with compensation just to kind of help maintain and watch what's going to happen in the next legislative session. But we did do a TASB study. So there's some positions that we need to look at to make them equitable and marketable to the rest of the market so that just so that we are showing some equity across the board.
Is this for the hourly only?
This is for the whole, every employee we did a TASB study on. They came in and they did evaluation of everything that we had, even teachers. And I will tell you, for the most part, I think 95% we are very marketable, comparable across all districts, and especially in our cohort groups. And I have a last picture of fund balance. It really hasn't changed, and that's in there for your luxury there to look at if you have questions about that. So that's budget. I flew through it, I know, because I have to cover graduation, and this will be less than 5 minutes unless you have lots of questions. Just wanted to let you know we have graduation coming up on Friday and Saturday. Legacy's Friday at 8 p.m. Southwest High School is Saturday at 8 p.m. You have a placard, and I had them make these for you. You have one for Legacy and one for Southwest High School. And you just put this on your dash, you pull up there and take you to the VIP. So on Legacy, you're going to park exact same spot where you would park for a football game. You have your placard, you pull in there, you park right there. You're going to go up to the press box. We'll have you a place up there to kind of hang out until it starts. And then you go downstairs and we'll walk you to the field, and then we'll have the ceremony. So that's for Legacy. So it's really like the football game. Southwest High School is going to be a little different. We don't feel like we have enough space in the press box. So what we're going to do is we want you to still park in the VIP there. So we're really using that whole parking lot because the home side is really crowded. But we want to have you park in the VIP area. We have that blocked off for you, but we're going to have you walk to the field house, and we have a big media room where we're going to set you up in there. So there'll be a dinner in there and all that.
We're going to park in the area we always park.
Yeah, parking area we always park, and then we open those gates so you can kind of just walk up on top across to the field house.
You'll have the gator there for Mike?
We'll have a gator there, and we'll get you down, and then we'll have something you can walk down the field house steps, and then we'll go around with the gator on top.
Are y'all relaxing the dress code? Do the men have to wear suits with ties, or are you asking them to wear?
We call it business casual.
Okay.
You know, I'm wearing a suit, and principal's wearing a suit, so, yeah. We know it's inclement weather, and we know that, we don't expect people to.
You don't expect, I'm, keep talking, I'm listening.
But they're not gonna wear shorts and tennies, right?
Are you relaxing the dress
No,
code?
I've just
heard all these
Them,
complaints from
can
other
they wear
districts
shorts
already.
and
We're-
t-shirts under their,
Yeah,
I believe they're
about the dress code.
Yeah.
They-
We're even telling our workers that are working they can wear
Well,
shorts.
some kids were wearing
We
shorts.
may get
Well,
some heartache
mosquitoes.
over the no high heel shoes
Oh, man.
because of
Yeah,
the
they do.
ditching into the field.
No, on that one.
We're taking that away,
They'll
but
get hurt. They'll go right to
relaxing
the
it
third.
with-
shift.
I'd like to, after we finish the meeting.
I could do whatever you
Not a
guys
decision,
want.
but I want to inform you guys.
I'm just gonna wear slacks and a nice shirt.
Maybe just a potential decision before the end of the week.
All right?
okay.
So this covered, every family's getting 4 tickets, they get 2 parking passes, we have it set up for them. We have a lot of things going on, we're gonna have entrance. We're gonna bring in 2 sections, the visitor side and the home side. There's gonna be a blue and a yellow group that'll come in at 6:45, but they're coming to come down 2 different roadways, 2 different gates, 2 different walkways. So we're keeping them separate. So we'll have a first wave at 6:45, a second wave at 7:15. We pushed it back a little bit just to deal with the heat. And we're gonna have social ambassadors everywhere. We're gonna have coaches in the stands, kind of helping people get to their seats. Everything's assigned. So really, if you get in there somehow, you got past the people taking the parking pass and past the ticket holders. I don't know how it's like going to the Alamo Dome and they're selling you tickets. So everybody has tickets, everybody has a pass. And we have different times so we can stagger and keep people safe, because we're still dealing with COVID. So we have a lot of safety protocols. We're gonna have stations out there, hand washing stations. We're gonna have bathrooms set up, water set up, all these things to keep people.
What time do you think we need to get there?
I would say if you come, and that's really up to you all we're gonna have that first wave hit at 6:45. So if you wanna come between 6:45 and 7:15. Yeah.
Before 7?
Well, 7 o'clock.
Are we
Brandon.
getting tickets? Because sometimes the police, they don't know who we are.
Well, your placard.
Just this, that's
Yeah,
all?
that'll get you to there, and if you just want to take that with you, at Legacy, you're gonna go from right there to the gate, and the people at the gate will know you.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about from the field house to the field because sometimes all the police don't know us. So we just need this paper.
Once you get in there, if you keep that with you, you'd be fine. And once you get in there, really, the police will be out in the parking lot area.
Okay.
Downstairs, we'll have mostly teachers and.
Okay.
Brendan, the parking situation, as far as when we drive in, is there gonna be only one entrance? Because I know sometimes I've gone one way and then there's
Yeah.
blocked and you gotta go around.
So,
They get mad.
yeah, so I think so example, if you're gonna come in, so at Southwest High School, we want you to come down the side on where the high school is. So that'll be, that's the blue section. So everybody on the home side is coming in through that gate. So if you come that way, they'll direct you to the VIP. Because if you come the other way, they're taking the people down the visitor side, so they may head off homebound. So that's
Oh.
the big point I should have talked about that. So if you're, for Southwest High School, please come by do the arches by Southwest High School.
Oh, yeah.
Don't come down and drag around on this side, the single arch. And then they'll direct you there. At Legacy, you're gonna come off the road off of Somerset Road. So if you're coming in along where the bus.
The one that says do not enter?
Yeah, the one that nobody learns, probably should just stick that sign down.
Yeah.
And I can show you here. So what we did for the stadium is we put it into 4 sections. So if you're a red section, so here's your stage and here's the red section of students, green, blue, and yellow. We tried to sit their families, or we mixed them up random, but these kids got the draw for this section so that.
Draw on that one.
Oh, I'm drawing the wrong one? Yeah. So if you're sitting in this section, we try to put the families close to that section. At Legacy, though, we don't have enough capacity. We're actually having to put some parents on the track, but we're getting jumbotrons. Hopefully that they come in and they're nice and they can still see. So we do have some parents that will actually sit here and we'll have it marked off so they can't come out and field or anything like that. Same thing on this blue side. So this is the home side, this is the visitor side. So we got it set up. So we gave every parent a map. So if you're coming in here, this is example. This is Southwest High School. We put on there, come in through the arch off Loop 1604 to the single arch by Southwest High School. We gave them this map so they know where to go, what parking lot they're parking in, what gate to go in, and what section they're sitting in. And they have tickets and they have a parking pass to match all that. So if you have blue, you got everything blue. So here's your pass. Your parking blue zone. You can actually scan it. It'll tell you. It'll bring the map up on your phone. Thanks, Roger. And then there's a ticket, and it tells them their section, their role, and their group. And then on the back, it actually says, you're verifying that you don't have any COVID symptoms by actually using this ticket. And so that's what we have. And we also did a health screening that they have to fill out and get to us before they come to us, just so that, so really it's been planned out in sections.
Does that overrule any colors?
That overrules everything, sir.
Brandon, and when they're sitting out there, how did y'all manage? Is it every other seat or?
We did, so there's families of 4. So we have it, we're gonna have a placard there. This is group 1. So they're there, and then we went 6 feet, but another one, and then we went, staggered them. So we kind of did this.
So families are
staggered.
together.
We skipped a row.
Oh, right.
Next row, we have another 4.
Every other?
Yeah, so it's staggered. We had to get creative at Legacy because the capacity is not like Southwest High School, and so you're gonna see, there will be some families that will have, when they're staggered, there'll be 2 on one row, and then there'll be skip a row, and then there'll be the other 2 family members behind them. So
Did y'all put additional bleachers at Legacy or not?
we were gonna put chairs around the track there because we're gonna have some jumbotrons.
Oh.
Because by the time we decided to, we couldn't find any extra features that we could rent at the time.
It's a very restricted environment. You know, we know that we're gonna be under the microscope with this event, and we're trying to do something special for the graduating students. And there's some issues going on with that right now, too, which I'll cover later on with you guys. And so we're asking if you're going to bring a spouse or someone, that they would plan to stay either in the press box at Legacy or in the kind of coaching meeting room at the Athletics Board and Southwest High School. We talk about every place in the field is taken, every place in the bleachers is taken. I mean, the thing is like to the 10th degree, pretty much planned out. And we anticipate that there may be some folks from the ed who have not received a freshman pass or ticket, and we have contingencies to deal with that. We also presented the plan to the Door County Emergency District. They're going to be there and have their little unit there just in case, bad weather, some weather, or something happens to folks. We're trying to be really equitable with all the students, so every student got 4. And we're trying to say, you have 4. We started with 2, but we expanded to 4. Understanding that there are some great families and we could accommodate it in these height. We just don't want to ever come out of the media as not being able to keep our families distant and not being able to run a program that's going to honor the college students to keep them safe and the real thing. So there's a lot of things kind of going on with it. So I want to make sure everyone's real clear. You may hear complaints from folks, but it is restricted on purpose to make sure we can do this.
I get my girlfriend in on this one.
Yes, I've stayed in the back box.
Yes.
You can't get her in on this?
No.
Where are we gonna be? Are we gonna go down to the field?
You'll be on the field. So I just want to reiterate, at Southwest
Well, that's
Legacy,
something,
you'll
isn't it?
use the service road off of Somerset, and you will park at the same place you park for a football game. You go up to the press box. You'll be up there right before we start. We'll get you down on the field. At Southwest High School, you'll come in through the single arch by Southwest High School, park in the VIP, and then we'll walk you over to the media room over at the field house and have you there. And then we'll walk down and go to the field. So it's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all.
It's like it's very organized. Imagine you get a...
So the board knows we won't be sitting on a stage. We'll actually be able to go, have a designated area so that we can make eye contact. But it's going to be a contactless ceremony where the students actually put their own certificate, take pictures, and when they walk by us, we'll acknowledge them.
Are y'all gonna spray for mosquitoes?
Yes, yes, you asked me. Went down to Canada.
Okay, so in the interest of time,
Do I what?
Item F, wants to go ahead and go to that, the last item.
Let me see, I might. Can I take my girlfriend to that?
So are we're
No,
gonna
she's
need to
not on
wear
the list.
masks down there, right? So that
You can get to F, where is
we're
it?
gonna have media or whatever. Okay, so you will distribute it.
may bring one too.
I'm told to say yes, but I hadn't got there yet.
Yes, so Dr.
Okay,
Rivera
so-
was going to cover the September 2020 virtual summer school program. I know that there's been questions and conversation from folks about giving our community an opportunity to unplug for a little while. So I think that's going to be open to our summer school program.
Okay, so in the interest of time, this presentation, everything you see in black ink is what I presented to you on May the 5th. So what I'm going to just go over right now is just what we're looking at of adding those additional layers. So what's in red are new items that are, pardon me?
We don't have any disease. You can pull that off.
Oh, okay, I'm just following the guidelines, so, okay. So everything that's in red is a change from the last presentation, okay? So as of today, when we did this, the Deerfoot Camp with Texas A&M looks like it will be a go. They did get permission from Texas A&M, so they are still working with the parents, making those individual phone calls to see which parents are willing to have their children participate. So we are planning for that. I just don't have numbers because this was a change of what we were originally planning. So going down to the last bullet on the bottom. So again, based on the recent restrictions that the governor lifted, we are looking at adding the additional second option of a face-to-face for our summer instructional recovery, and that would be for the children to come into the school building. So with that, the principals and their teams are personally contacting the parents to check their interest. We're not sending emails, we're not sending letters. They are making a personal phone call to the parents to gauge their interest if they are interested in having their child attend the face-to-face summer instructional recovery. And again, that's for the students who are already identified and their names appeared on that list for the IR program. The counts from the elementary and secondary are due back to our committee by June 5th. That's this week on Friday. At that time, we'll be able to get a better determination of how many kids parents only want online, virtual to continue stay at home, and how many would want the face-to-face, so we can then determine how many teachers to hire, because when I came last month, we were looking at virtual only. So now we would add that additional layer to that. So based on that, and then the numbers. With the governor, we must follow the restrictions of the number of students in the classroom. We are allowed to have 11 bodies in the classroom. That includes the teacher as well. So we're looking at a possibility of 10 students in the classroom, max 10 with the teacher. Now, if there's an 8 in the classroom, then we're only looking at 8 students so that we can keep those limits, or 9 students, I'm sorry. The third option that we're looking at is a paper packet, what's called Paper Packet 2.0, and that's through TEA. And so that if parents do not want to send their children face-to-face, or they do not want to participate online, we can look at TEA being able to mail that packet home to the parents, and the students would then work on that on their own pace throughout the summer to still have some type of instruction. We are working with Mr. Crisp and with Winston to look at the summer feeding locations, as those would be the sites where we would possibly open up, again, depending on the number of students, so that we want to make sure that it's going to be feasible to have a teacher hired for the number of students that we have. So the dates for the summer instructional recovery, those were modified from what I last presented to you. We are going to give the brief break in June for most students and teachers, and that was based on the community and staff feedback that we received. So that program has been moved to July. The only June structured program is the virtual high school, and I'll go over that in a moment. And please keep in mind that this is ever changing. As the governor changes things or things add, we'll be adjusting accordingly. Just to go to this as a brief option, just so that you can see the options is our key. June, we're looking at, okay, let's see. June would be self-paced. Okay, so we're not going to go to that. We'll just skip over and I'll tell you what it is. So June would be self-paced. We did not collect all the devices from the students, so the parents had the option to keep that. If they want to keep working on something in June, they'll be able to and go to those online resources. July would be our regular summer program, and that's what we have outlined here for you. So July 13th through the 30th would be the 12 days for the students. As you can see on top, July 9th would be the 6-hour PD day for the teachers. The classes would be Monday through Thursday. Based on the counts that we get back this Friday, we're looking at online, face-to-face, and the paper packets. And so it's basically the same for elementary, middle, and high school. For the high school credit recovery, that's the only program I mentioned earlier that would be June. The June 10th would be the PD day for 2 teachers, because we're only looking at approximately 50 students for Southwest High School and 50 for Legacy. That will be a virtual-only program. And then we have TSI scheduled for July. There will be some face-to-face component for the testing portion of that. Our numbers have decreased from what I brought back to you back in May. So for the elementary, those numbers decreased from 359 down to 220 as of yesterday. So that's 139 less students that we have for elementary. And again, this is based on getting final grades and recommendations the teachers sent to their principals. So if we continue with virtual, we're looking still continuing with the 30-to-1 ratio. Students would still rotate online in the smaller groups. Again, those counts are due by June 5th. For the middle school, those counts decreased from 350, I reported on May 5th, to 307, so that's 43 less. High school, that remained the same. As far as the budget, we don't have the figures for you yet because we don't know the number of teachers and the counts and the number of classrooms. But this will be continuing to develop and ever changing as we continue. And I believe that's 5 minutes or less.
Thank you.
It's hard to believe that the parents don't want to get rid of their kids. That many of them don't want to send them.
The teacher said they don't need it.
Oh, they don't need
After
them.
all the grades came in, they don't need
All
it.
right. That's different. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
In addition to the summer program, we continue serving other special populations. And so we want that population will always going to share.
Thank you.
Took a bite.
All right, so we went ahead and did a couple of different surveys. We surveyed both parents and then we surveyed our staff. That would be the staff that typically are in self-contained units or our school psychologists or speech pathologists. So those would be individuals that are not going to be able to social distance. Given the nature of their job, it's going to require a lot more face-to-face. So when you look at the population of the students, what we had is some of our staff, actually one particular staff member, Kelly Gaylor, actually started calling parents. We did across the board representation from every single campus. So we called several from every campus. And when we called the parents, we were really looking at what they were feeling in terms of summer versus fall. So for summer, this was kind of the response to how they felt about coming back to a face-to-face format. So you still had 72% that were not ready. In terms of returning to fall, you had a smaller population that still felt that they wouldn't be ready for the fall. So that was a positive outcome in terms of that. In terms of what they were talking about for what they saw as appropriate for the fall, this was kind of the breakdown. So you still had a larger population that were looking at either a virtual or a or a hybrid version of that. We did ask about masks, and so 64% of the students that we did survey were actually wearing masks when they were out of the house. And this was what they felt comfortable in terms of attending school for the fall. If we did come back face to face, how many days were they looking at? So we're really just trying to gauge where parents were, coming from in terms of just their students in general. We also wanted to know, are these students that we were fielding questions for, did they have medical concerns? And so you had 66% that didn't have any medical concerns that they were concerned about. So it was just other mitigating factors that were a concern to them. We also looked, like I said, in terms of the staff. And so this is kind of the breakdown about how our staff felt in terms of meeting face-to-face and with outside agencies. So you still had a large population that was concerned about doing face-to-face. And then we asked about the fall in terms of what they would prefer if we're talking about situations where we weren't able to social distance. And so those were the breakdowns for that. A lot of the hybrid and virtual were still very much at the forefront. And again, we asked the same question about days coming back in the fall, and this was the breakdown for that as well. And then we asked specifically about summer. And so you can see for the summer, it's a larger piece of the puzzle that is either virtual or a hybrid format. And so based on that information, we really started to talk about what do we need to do to phase in people, because the reality is we have to come back.
And so we know that in order to do that effectively, we felt that we really needed to find a way to ease everyone into the process. So what we proposed was that in phase one, our staff would come back into the actual classrooms and they would teach virtually for that week. The purpose of doing that was twofold. One was so that we could, number one, practice the appropriate PPE that they're going to be required to wear in the classroom setting. And for our population, it is going to require more than a mask. It's going to require a face shield. For some of us, it's going to require smocks and gloves because we're dealing with toileting, we're dealing with behaviors, those kinds of things. And so it gives them the opportunity to phase in, practice those pieces, and also for the students to see them virtually in all of that get up. Because I do think for some of our students, it is going to be a shock to them. Because I know that when Ms. Gaylor made phone calls, a lot of what the parents were saying was, well, my student isn't wearing a mask because they haven't been out of the house. So they haven't necessarily seen that process. So in that virtual timeframe, we would be working on all of those skills. We would be talking about just procedurally what will happen when they come back into phase two. And then in phase two, what we would be doing for the special ed population is bringing them in on a scheduled on a schedule where they're working one-on-one with their staff. It would be practicing the entrance, the exit, and the routine in the classroom, and any additional practices that we're going to have to put in place just for mitigation purposes for COVID. And so that would give the teachers an opportunity to walk through that with them without an audience, because that's a whole nother process to that. And then when we moved into phase three, it is moving them back in small groups. We would actually be reducing it from the 10 that they have recommended, and we would be doing 3 to 4 students, partially because we need to, again, we've got a lot of other factors that we're going to have to play into that. And it would give us an opportunity to kind of work through some of those routine opportunities that we do foresee to be a concern as we're kind of moving into that. I do think the phased in process will help to mitigate a lot of concerns for individuals that are stressed about coming back into that environment. I know that with parents and with staff, when we talk to them, there was a decline in just anxiety when you start talking about things that we're putting in place procedurally. So I know that with the focus groups that we met with that were staff, as we talked through a lot of the things that they felt were necessary to be able to do their job, I think if those those particular PPE equipment things are in place, that you're going to have a larger or bigger change in those graphs just in general. Moving more towards being more functional terms of face-to-face. And so the remainder of the document that I shared with you guys is really just a breakdown of phase 1, 2, and 3 and what those procedurally look like.
So the fact that Dr. Hogan and Dr. Escobedo agreed down, survey parents and really kind of feedback and it's really viable plan.
Lloyd, I have a question. How I don't know if y'all have had these discussions. How are we gonna handle, the, like, let's say a child, gets COVID. So then there's the HIPAA, which, I mean, you can't discuss, but then you wanna tell parents that maybe this, do we wanna tell parents that this happened in the classroom? Have we talked about that? Because if the kids we're gonna start bringing them in, that's gonna happen, right? So what takes precedence, the need to know versus the privacy?
I think we're all going to work together. What's happening now is we're using contact tracing, so we can use those students back who they've been in contact with. Definitely inform those parents and all those students, teachers, that you can have to go to 14-day quarantine. Anyone who was in contact with them.
So we can share the name of the child. You just tell them that they were in contact with someone. Okay.
There's no personal identifiable.
Okay.
Aspect to it.
Okay.
But definitely we would know about where you
right.
And we can do that contact tracing back. We're actually doing that right now
with the adult, with staff, right?
Yeah. System, and I can tell you, but we can notify today, but our second adult in our system. COVID is not out there. COVID is right here. And so we have to live in this environment. And, quote unquote, the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, and I'm dealing with it. So there's a lot of issues that are going on with that. In conjunction with that, starting June 8th, which is this coming Monday, in Texas, districts are starting their
strength and conditioning programs, allowable under UIL, allowable to provide these protocols and safe distancing. And so we're one of the districts who are starting to mediate where we can bring up students in groups of 10, and they have to be 6 feet apart, where they're lifting weights. If they lift weights, they'll have to be outside. They have to be 10 feet apart. You have to wear a mask if you're in a position of spotting. So there's a lot of rules to it. So if a student comes back and has been exposed to COVID, then that whole group is quarantined. That whole kid is quarantined for 14 days. And the other groups continue going, any coach that was exposed to them. So we're developing kind of protocols that has to go, back in the old day when this came, we'd all go screaming out of the building and run. Now it's about contact trace, identifying the people within out 14 days, so don't like, and what we do, what we were able to do, where those folks have been in our district facilities, so we can clean, we can break in, disinfect, top and bottom. So I know there's a group here doing that over the weekend as well. So when it comes to students, any student in the classroom, if a student came up and tested positive, would have to be quarantined.
Right.
But not those schools.
No, but the whole classroom potentially. Okay.
But they've done a good job of getting good conditions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. What else you got, sir?
I was at 7 items, sir. Thank you guys for your patience. I would like to talk to the board for just a second. I'm not asking for any decisions. Just I would like to keep it.
Right here in this room.
Oh, after he closes.
Oh, after we close? Oh, we can handle that.
Yeah.
I don't know what time it is, though, to handle it.
132, sir.
1:32? We're adjourned.